Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, your host. And a lot of companies are making the turn to sustainability, but Suntory, the maker of Japanese whiskey and other beverages, including Jim Beam and Maker's Mark here in the United States, along with Orangina, the orange soda drink, has been pioneering sustainability in Japan for many years. And we were pleased to have Clarkson Hine, who is a senior executive with Beam Suntory in Chicago, and also an advisor to the sustainability group at Suntory Corporation in Japan, join us to talk about how the company has been making investments in renewable sources of packaging material and its use of water and other carbon reductions efforts. Welcome to the show, Clarkson. How are you?
Great, Mitch. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Well, hey, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. The first thing I'd like you to do is tell us a little more about Suntory. I sort of gleaned over how big a company this is, but this is a massive beverage and spirits company.
Yeah, Suntory is a global leader in both beverage alcohol and non-alcohol beverages. We've got a unique and diverse portfolio of products and brands, ranging from premium spirits, beer and wine, to things like brewed teas, bottled water, carbonated soft drinks, ready-to-drink coffee, and energy drinks, along with health and wellness products. So you mentioned Japanese whiskey, that would include Yamazaki, Hibiki, Hakushu, as well as iconic American whiskeys. We're the world's number one bourbon company with Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, Knob Creek, Basil Hayden's, among others. And then, great iconic brands like Courvoisier Cognac and Laphroaig Scotch, Hornitos Tequila, Sipsmith Gin, and many more. So, consumers in Japan and Asian markets will recognize the premium malts beer, and other brands include popular non-alcoholic beverages like Orangina, as you mentioned, as well as Lucozade, Ribena, Boss Coffee, and Suntory Teninsui Water in Japan. And the company dates back to 1899, founded by Shinjiro Tori, who opened his first wine shop then.
Now, Suntory is ranked above the 360 other companies in its group for a long time, well above average for environmental, social, and governance issues. When did Suntory make the commitment to start to pursue those goals, and what drove the decision?
Well, it's really part of Suntory's DNA and dates back to our founding spirit of giving back to society and the Yate Minahare spirit, which is a Japanese term for setting ambitious goals and relentlessly pursuing them and never giving up and constantly challenging oneself. Mm-hmm. And so at Suntory, we really embody this spirit in everything we do as a company. So committing to ESG progress was less of a decision, at any point in time than something we've more or less always done and lived. But, sort of drilling down a bit, in 2003, Suntory established the first natural water sanctuary, which is a flagship initiative related to water conservation and watershed protection. Mm-hmm. And more recently, we've made a number of commitments focused on three key areas: water, the circular economy for plastics, and CO2 reduction. So by 2030, for example, we aim to transition all our PET bottles used globally to be 100% recycled material or bio-based materials, and to achieve zero fossil-based material in those bottles. We have an ambition to reduce absolute CO2 emissions from our global operations. Those are the scope 1 and 2 emissions by 25% compared to the 2015 baseline. Reduce absolute CO2 across the entire value chain, those scope 3 emissions by 20%, and improve the efficiency of our water use in all our plants globally by 15% by 2030, again, against the 2015 benchmark. So at the same time, we're targeting to implement watershed conservation activities in more than 50% of our plants worldwide, engaging our suppliers to promote sustainable water use in the production of our key raw materials. And we also look to implement water and hygiene education programs and provide access to safe water to a total of 1 million people, particularly in water-stressed areas.
Well, that's great. Let me drill in a little bit on the idea of fully sustainable plastic in bottles by 2030. And you said both that it would be recycled PET and bioplastics. I guess the question I have, and this is what a lot of our audience question too is, how do you know what to buy? Does Suntory help you identify the recycled content in these packages so that you can make a decision that's supporting a more sustainable approach to packaging?
Well, by 2030, every package will be, fully sustainable. And so we're focused on both recycled plastic bottles as well as, plant-based bioplastics. And, these will be clearly labeled. And, this is something where technology obviously makes a big difference. And we've continued to invest in this as a priority during the pandemic. So, this might be a good time to tell you about a couple of, innovations that Suntory is pursuing in PET, including innovative flake to preform technology, which eliminates steps between, recyclable scraps and new bottle production. And this also reduces CO2 by 25% versus traditional processes, and reduces carbon by 60% versus petroleum derived PET preform bottles. We're also collaborating with a US-based sustainable technology company called Inelitech to develop a 100% plant-based PET bottle. And this summer, we announced a JV in Japan called R Plus Japan, in partnership with cross-industry companies in the plastic value chain in Japan to advance chemical recycling processes. So creating a circular economy for plastic is a top priority for us at Suntory.
Let me ask about the glass bottles that you use for spirits. Glass is not widely recycled in the States anymore for a variety of crazed reasons. Are you also working to try to make a circular economy in glass?
Well, we're looking at ways to do that at Beam Suntory, and we're currently looking to set our ambitions in that area. But we're firmly committing to, are committed to, achieving 100% recyclable packaging, in the future. And I completely agree with you. Glass and plastic are two different animals in this space, and we'll be working with our suppliers and with our own R&D people and with our brand teams on ways to move to a packaging positive position across all formats.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, one of the things I've learned is that really, if you get stuck on the material rather than the fact that you have to package something, you end up trying to force things into packaging that does not necessarily work or is sustainable. And, another element, and we talked about they're going to be labeling, you'll be labeling the packaging so that you can tell whether or not it's recycled or bioplastic.
Well, and with glass too, it's consumers often perceive a product as being high quality if the package weighs a lot.
Right.
So there's a natural tension between, a consumer's expectation for quality and premiumness and their expectations of a company to be sustainable.
Well, and you also mentioned the idea of a consumer education program. So what kind of consumer education messaging are you thinking about getting out there to help people start to understand these decisions they're going to be making?
Well, in Japan, for example, consumer education around recycling has been, really successful. Yeah. And when you look at recycling in Japan, it's remarkable that Japan's recycling rate is 4 times the rate that it is in the U.S. So Japan's rate is 84%. But the good news about that is it demonstrates that massive progress is possible, right. And that comes through innovations in recycling technology, partnerships, and cultural commitment, which includes consumer education initiatives. And these are big challenges, and neither government or business can solve these problems alone. But in Japan, Suntory and others have advanced sustainable practices by working collaboratively with government and industry peers, and that could be a useful model for other countries. And these collaborative efforts have focused on measures that make it easier for materials like plastic to avoid entering the waste stream and to become part of a circular system. So, for example, we work with the government there and the beverage industry on initiatives to increase recyclability, including making all bottles transparent and creating labels that were easily removed. Yeah. And that helped drive the recycling rate, above 80% nationally in Japan.
Well, I'm curious, when did that happen? When did you cross the 80% threshold? Do you know?
Well, that's the national rate in Japan.
Right.
And, I think it's been in the past 2 or 3 years, but I don't have the exact date. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious because, we desperately need to make progress, and it would be great to be able to point to other countries that have made progress, not 30 years ago, but within the last year. And it sounds like Japan's doing that.
No, it's definitely been recent. And, again, I think it stands as a great example that, yes, this can be done.
Yeah, well, from your lips to God's ears. Now, you mentioned water sanctuaries, and Suntory has a commitment to return more water than it uses to the environment by 2050. How does that work? How do you put back more water than you take out, and what role does the water sanctuary play in that plan?
We have a goal to cultivate double the amount of water we use in our plants in Japan. We achieved that actually in 2019, a year ahead of our target. And key to that is what we call natural water sanctuaries. And these are things we're currently looking to expand. It's a watershed conservation initiative to facilities broadly across the world. And we're one of only a few companies working to be globally water net positive by 2050. Mm-hmm. And we're committed to improving water use efficiency in all our plants globally, as I mentioned earlier. And we, Suntory set up the first natural water sanctuary in 2003, as I mentioned, and these sanctuaries help create better conditions to regenerate water naturally. And I've actually participated in efforts in forests in both Japan and in the U.S. to, for example, reduce invasive plant species and plant new trees to create the conditions to, regenerate natural water. And we're really proud of the progress we've made. And we're bringing this to other markets. And in 2016, we established a 33-acre water sanctuary on the grounds at the Maker's Mark Distillery in Loretto, Kentucky. Uh-huh. And that was the first such sanctuary in the United States. And 2 years later, we established a Natural Water Sanctuary Alliance on about 15,000 acres of land in the Bernheim Arboretum and Research Forest in Claremont, Kentucky. And that contains the water source for the Jim Beam distillery. And we've now expanded watershed protection activities to production facilities in India, Mexico, Spain, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And we're planning future investments in Scotland, Ireland, France, and Canada.
Sounds like where you make a lot of different distilled drinks, actually.
That's what the
map works.
Well, but natural water is essential to our products, and
sure.
And that's why we're committed to protecting and nurturing that water for our products, our communities, and for future generations.
I'm still a little lost on the idea of how you can be net positive water when, of course, you deliver liquid from your factories. How does the water? Are you doing some form of condensation in order to recapture water from the air in order to put more water back? It's a tough concept.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but it's about creating the conditions for water to regenerate naturally.
Okay, so you're measuring outside of your supply, your production process, and net the water that you are preserving is adding up to more water than the company uses. Is that correct?
Well, we cultivate more water than we use in our plants in Japan, and and there are different ways to do that, and we can measure it though, and we set a target to double that amount, and we achieved it.
Now let's turn to the financial reasons for doing this. So did investors start asking for this, or did you find that you, by introducing this, attracted more investors who wanted to support sustainable companies?
Well, Suntory Holdings is privately held, so though the Suntory Beverage and Food subsidiary is publicly traded. So we focus on the expectations of a wide range of stakeholders, from investors to consumers to our own employees. And I can say investors are pleased with how we're pushing forward with our sustainability policies, especially by working together with stakeholders globally, including our own people. And, I think as well as anybody, consumers are also interested in buying from and partnering with companies with sustainable practices. And, younger generations are beginning to use their wallets to support organizations and brands that are sustainably and purpose driven and focused. And I saw a survey this week that showed that 83% of consumers take the environment into consideration when making purchases, and that was up from 71% the year before. So, the bottom line is sustainability is no longer an option. And, stakeholders ranging from consumers to investors expect sustainability and are making investment and purchasing choices based on how sustainable a company is. And it's also key to being more trusted by your stakeholders and by society. And this trust is really a license to operate for companies like ours. And it's imperative for Suntory to keep advancing our growing for good commitment with investment in sustainability initiatives.
How are you finding bringing along supply chain partners to begin to remove CO2 emissions from their processes to preserve water and other sustainable initiatives? Are they willing partners now because they see that this is an essential business practice?
Yeah. Well, we have an objective to be carbon neutral across our entire value chain by 2050. And scope 3 is definitely the most challenging because it's the part of carbon reduction that's least under our control. But collaboration with supply chain partners is the only way we'll make progress on scope 3 and achieve that level of carbon reduction. And so there are things we can do ourselves and with partners on packaging, for example, shifting to sustainable PET, reducing packaging weight, using more recycled material. And, suppliers, they feel the same expectations from, their stakeholders as we do. And we're one of their stakeholders. And so
finding their stake.
And I think everybody recognizes that, this takes time, but, it's important that we do it. And, so I think our experience has been, partners, see the need to be more sustainable, just as we do. And so, we're pursuing that a lot of ways. And for example, we're in Japan reducing power consumption with more efficient technology, with partnerships as part of that, we're making significant progress with reducing the carbon footprint of vending machines, which are very popular ways to deliver products in Japan. And so we're working closely, in collaboration with suppliers to set carbon reduction targets. And, we have a lot of progress to make. So perhaps we can talk about that again down the road, maybe sometime before 2050.
Well, it'd be good if we had great news. It sounds like we'll be doing pretty well by 2030. But another thing I read about on your site is that in addition to reducing your environmental impact, Suntory is seeking to do environmental regeneration programs. So what kind of work are you doing to restore the climate?
Well, at Suntory, we prioritize carbon emission reduction and long-term planetary health throughout the entire business, really, and including our approach to plastics and water, which we've talked about. So the natural water sanctuaries are aimed at regenerating natural water, and we're pleased to have reached important benchmarks there. Another really cool thing is the work we're doing to regenerate white oak forests, which are the raw material for the barrels we use to age whiskey. It takes these trees 50 to 80 years to grow to be able to make barrels, and we need to ensure a sustainable approach to our white oak forest. So through a program called the White Oak Initiative, we partner with peer companies, barrel suppliers, and researchers to enhance land management and forestry practices. So there's a lot of foresight and commitment behind that initiative, and it's just one of the ways we work to help restore nature.
Have you explored regenerative agriculture, for instance, for the grain you use in the distillery business?
Well, our grains come from suppliers, and we will be, our supply arrangements are clearly, an important part of our sustainability posture. And we actually had a meeting, this week where we talked about sustainability in raw materials sourcing, and so. We are looking, at ways that we can partner with suppliers to achieve much more widely used sustainable practices, in the not too distant future.
Well, how can our listeners keep up with what Suntory is doing in your progress on carbon and water footprints? Is there a page on your site that they can visit and follow?
Yeah, I'd invite anybody to visit suntory.com/CSR, where you can find comprehensive information on Suntory's 7 sustainability themes, and particularly the progress we're making on the circular economy for plastics, water conservation, and carbon reduction.
Well, Clarkson, thanks for taking time to talk to Earth 911 today.
Well, thanks, Mitch. Appreciate your having me.
Well, that was Clarkson Hine. He is advisor to the sustainability group at Suntory Corporation, as well as a senior executive at Beam Suntory in Chicago. Folks, check out suntory.com. That's suntory.com /CSR to follow Suntory's progress and make some explorations into their products. Folks, we'll be back with another episode of Earth 911 Sustainability in Your Ears soon. Another innovator interview with me, Mitch Ratcliffe, your host. Take care of yourselves, take care of the planet, and have a great afternoon. Take care.